everybody. This is Heather Lockett. We're having lasting conversations. And today we have Tami Barber in the house with us via Zoom. Hey, Tami, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Thank you so much for coming in. You're in your own studio, and because you are, and your location is somewhere in Louisiana. We're going to get to your RV and your travels and your flow of your life, but I am just tickled pink that you are here tonight. And Tami is a whirlwind, a vivacious, an energetic, beautiful soul of a woman. And she's here to share her wisdom and her joy and her experiences that really run the gamut. One of the things right now, she's got not one, but two podcast shows. She is helping other people via being a barista part-time, and we'll get to that. And Tami is a former Dallas Cowboys cheerleader. Yay and woohoo! Yay and woohoo!
Got my boys right. Where are they?
You got your little pom poms and your hat.
I got all my stuff. Yep.
And and like you said, this was back in the day. So this is in the late 70s, back in the day. So Tami, welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for the invite.
Well, we met at that Podfest last month, and where there's a couple thousand people all learning their craft and honing their craft and saying what they need to say. And you were one of the speakers there, and you're just a ball of lightning, and I so appreciate you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. It was my first time speaking there, and I was nervous.
Well, sure, but we would have never know it. And it was really, that was a beautiful experience. I've spoken about it a couple of times since. And what it felt like was kind of a family where, yes, there was business at hand, and yet everybody was there to help lift the next person. And what do you need to know? And what do you need?
Unlike any other conference that I've ever been to, where there is the learning and you're absorbing, but there's zero competition.
Exactly.
It's gather, help lift, like you said, lift. You come out of Podfest on a high that is just incredible, and you just want to cling to it. And I can't wait to go back next year.
You know, me too. And there were a number of people who shared that very sentiment, which is that many of us have been to many different conferences before, and especially if they are vendor conferences, I'll put it that way, because there's all kinds of different spiritual conferences and things,
right,
which you can find your high that way and your family. But for a vendor business conference, that's what both of us are saying was different. That it was about, let's help each other learn and grow, start ugly, even if it's not perfect and pretty, but do it and do it anyway. And somebody here, if not one, if not 100 people, have your back. Oh,
and which is, it was my second one, but that's what I left with. My first Podfest was, all the beginner's tracks learning, because I was a procrastinator. I had talked about my podcast for about a year, and everybody kept saying, have you recorded? Have you launched? No. And you get to Podfest and the support and the do it ugly and just everybody that lifts you up and says, you're going to be great. It's going to be awesome. And it's just, that's why it's Pod Fam.
Pod Fam is so true. And what's also interesting is where the technology is, where we're going beyond that.
Wow.
So it was really a multimedia event, whether people are on TV currently or will be on TV, radio, whatever the broadcasts are. One of these days, honest to God, and this was their 10th anniversary, maybe by the 20th anniversary, but now downloading from whatever planet it's good. You never know.
I'm on Mars, and
that's right.
I just wanted to say hi to Podfest. Yeah,
that's right.
I know and it's amazing just what I learned, what has changed just in the last year since I started. And I was even like a little AI shy.
Mm-hmm.
I had heard about it last year and I was like, no, no. And now I've come home and embraced it. And which is good for me because a couple of my listeners are deaf and the transcripts can be done with AI and just help everybody. And then now I'm going to start doing video like you are for YouTube, and I can do the closed captions, and so
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to reach more and more people. And that's what I like.
It's a beautiful thing. It truly, truly is. So,
Yeah.
where would you like to start? I could start with your podcast shows, but I feel like we need to press the rewind button and take us to the very young woman who said, "I'm going out of Nebraska. I'm going to try out for this crazy thing called cheerleading." On the
Yep.
grand scale, the grand scale.
Well, the actual reason was I had left Omaha and went to college in
Mhm.
Dallas. And growing up, my dad is an avid Cowboy fan. He and I was a Rams fan growing up, and we, that's what we shared. We shared professional football, and so now I'm in Dallas, and I'm listening one day to a radio station that says we're holding auditions for the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders. Send us a letter or something if you want to try out, and we'll send you a time. And I thought, oh, why not? I mean, I had no clue what I was doing or what it was all about. There wasn't internet and cell phones. It was like literally mail this
Mhm.
in with a
Yeah.
picture. And unbeknownst to me, I was applying with 2,000 other girls for 14 spots.
Wow.
It took 3 months because you went, you tried, you made a cut, you made a cut, you made a cut, you made a cut. And then there was finally the semifinals and the finals. And excuse me, the very last finals, there were 86 of us left. And I was number 86, which we've all discovered is not a good number.
Well, that's
But,
true. Yeah.
But and that year they don't do it anymore, but that year they went like, ladies and here are your new Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders, and they said number 1, da da da, number 3, da da da, number 5. So they went that way. And somebody asked me after I had made it, was I counting? And did I know there were spots left by the time they got to my number? And I was, no. I couldn't breathe. I was just, So when they called my name, even then I had no idea what was about to happen to my life, but it was 3 magical years, 2 Super Bowls. And like I told everyone at Podfest, it was the Roger Staubach years, the magical Tom Landry years. And I traveled and did USO tours. I traveled around the United States for personal appearances. And it just opened my world to so many magical moments and things that will forever be in my heart. And we have an alumni with each team has an alumni as well as the national alumni, and those are my sisters.
Well, because it's an experience that only you guys would know. And again, we'll get to your second new podcast baby, which is Sideline Legends. And so all of you that are legends on the field, but wearing a completely different uniform than the guys out there. Right. But still, and especially, I'm not sure if it's as hot of a big deal these days as it was back in the 70s. And of course, the not
Yeah, I
only the
don't think it
marketing,
is.
but people, I don't hear about it as much. Not that I watch football a lot, but still out into the ethers, you guys, before internet and before all this stuff, this was the one thing that people were doing, and the posters that were out, and
Yes.
that you were a very big deal, you and some of the other teams, but there was nothing like a Dallas Cowboy cheerleader
No,
for sure.
what I love is our introduction. Well, we perform once a year for halftime at
Hmm.
AT&T Stadium, and I love the introduction that says, "Often imitated, never equaled." The Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders, and
Yeah.
there's so much pride, and I mean, what it did for my mom and dad was just indescribable. I was given a key. I was Four of us were brought back to my hometown in Nebraska for an appearance, and I was given the key to the city. And I'm from Bellevue, Nebraska, which is a small suburb, or especially back then in the 70s, of Omaha. And the population doubled that day. That's how many people came out to see us.
Oh, wow.
And I
And
remember standing on the stage when I received the key to the city, and I looked out over the crowd at my mom and dad and their tears. And it was just wow.
oh,
And I'm an
wow.
only child, so I didn't want to screw up the only thing they had going.
Oh, well, that's very, very sweet. So listen, when you're saying that you were called to do this, to try out, and yes, we figure you're going to be dancing out on the field and doing all this stuff. Did you have any idea when it came time to sign your name that you were about to do the USO? You were going to go on the Love Boat. You were about to be a TV star
No idea.
plus.
No idea. And it was very hard to process because
Yeah.
we were just who we were. I mean, first of all,
And you
after
were a
you
young
make,
woman, just
oh, as a
how
baby,
old?
I was
Re,
19.
19s. You were
I
a
was
very young
19.
woman. Yeah.
Yes, I was a baby. I was a teenager. I'm sorry. 19 is still teen.
Yep.
um, and we practice all summer, 5 nights a week, getting ready for the season. So, none of that had started yet. We weren't known. There had been very little done as far as television and things like that. I mean, then got a little bit like a couple of years before, but nothing what happened my year.
Hmm.
And it's very strange. Well, because I wore the pigtails, I was being noticed, I think a little more than some of the girls. And I would walk into a grocery store or a drugstore or just be somewhere, and they'd be like, "Oh, you're," and so we joke that my Indian name is Tami Two Fists on Head.
Oh
And
my gosh.
but do you know who you are? You're and and you go from just being you to this person that people want to talk to and want to touch. And we did a halftime at Wichita State in Kansas for one of their college games. And we were sitting in the stands after our performance. And all of a sudden, there was a bunch of people started coming up towards us. And our director came down and she said, "Ladies, I want you to gather your things. I want you to hold on to another girl, and we're going to leave the stadium and go to our bus now. Do not lag behind. Do not talk to anyone." And we're all, "What?" And then we noticed the mob coming at us. We call it our Beatles moment
Yeah.
because
Okay.
as we got into the tunnel of the stadium, they started running. We started running. We all made it safely to the bus. They were rocking the bus.
Oh my.
It and it was one of those moments where I think every single one of us in there was probably wanting our moms. Nobody was thinking, wow, we're rock stars. We were like,
Right.
oh my God, what do we do? Are we going to be okay? Yeah. And that's when it started. And then it never let up.
Well, and so at that time, you wouldn't have had your own security because it
None.
was
No.
literally a new phenomenon, a wave.
None.
So these were just rabid fans, just like you said, the Beatles moment.
It was our Beatles moment.
Oh my
And
gosh.
like I said, none of us appreciated the moment of, wow, we're in our 15 minutes. No, scared to
I bet.
death. And then the
I bet.
security started, but it was still very scary.
Wow.
A lot
So,
of
okay.
crazy.
There are a lot of crazy. So from here, there's so many tangents we can go to, but I think it might be a great time to say there is a you're in a documentary that is, I think I'll just put it out there. Everybody really should watch this because it is historic value, female feminism value, all the flavors, male, female, whoever you were. It's a snapshot of time, but really the evolution of not only being a cheerleader, which many of us have this little teeny tiny perspective of it, not realizing the grueling work that goes into it, not realizing you're supposed to have other jobs besides being this full-time thing. And it showed the history of that whole organization and how it came to be, and your director, and good, bad, and ugly, that this woman was mama bear, even with moments like that. And
we're so lucky we had that strength, a strong woman like that.
Oh my gosh, she was absolutely. So the documentary is called Daughters of the Sexual Revolution. And when you and I were chatting before pressing record, you were saying we had no idea there was anything about the documentary itself, but that there's anything sexual about it. And that is where I would say, watch this show, watch this documentary, and find it wherever you can find it, because it does a beautiful painting of during our time of during a sexual revolution, and whatever side someone was on with feminism and not, it was during that whole awakening time. And then here come all these cheerleaders during a time where some would call jiggle TV. And so there are opinions back and forth about it all. But here are you women, you young girls, with this strong ass woman in a very important position in a male dominated field. It's a fascinating watch, and it's fascinating to see you. Proud. Yeah, to see you and your own family teammates from that time, and watching the footage from the days and your pigtails and everybody's and their costumes, and then from sitting in your chair decades later to see how you were feeling back then and how you're feeling now, because it truly is amazing.
It is, because then you also realize that when you are an NFL cheerleader, that you are consumed. Your world is consumed. You have no idea what's going on in the real world. You are practicing 4 and 5 hours a night, 5 days a week. And then if the game is at home, then that whole Sunday or Monday is game. You know, if somebody probably had come up and said, who's the president? I would have said, hopefully the same guy that was before I made cheerleading, because you really are not aware of anything but you eat, you breathe, you sleep, you wake to your team and to your teammates and all that's happening there, and the things that and they take care of us, and they send us here and send us there to represent. And we're very, very young, and we had to learn how to be PR from nothing to, America's team. And it's always about the Cowboys. It's always about well, now they call it's about the star. But back then it was, and it still is. I mean, you can hate them, you can love them. The Dallas Cowboys, nobody says who.
Right. It's true.
And kind of like now, nobody's going to say, who are the Kansas City Chiefs?
That's right. They don't say that anymore. That's for sure.
No, they don't. So it's overwhelming. And like I said, and you don't have time to even process it. You're just doing your job.
Well, and again, back then, and maybe they do or no now, you wouldn't have had personal representatives. You didn't have handlers. You didn't have lawyers. You didn't have people that would help sign a better contracts or any of that.
No.
And I will say that one of the absolutely stunning moments, seeing how many hours, grueling work for weeks and weeks and weeks, and you made $15 or $20 a game.
We actually made $14.12 after
Oh
taxes.
my God.
And they wouldn't give you a check every week. Because that was too little of a check. So they'd wait till like 6 games. And
come on. Oh my gosh. So how I don't have words for that.
Well, yes,
because even in 1977 to 80, that is crap for pay for what they were getting. Oh my goodness. Now they say in Boston, don't get me started. That's I'm literally dumbfounded.
We were starving. And you had to have a full-time job. Well, let me tell you how. I think I was with the Cowboys for 3 years. I'm pretty sure I had 3 or 4 jobs during that time because I would literally fall asleep at my job. Right. And you would work all day, so 8 to 5, and then race to practice. You didn't get paid to drive across Dallas. And then you would be driving home at night at 11, 12 at night to go to bed, wake up at 5:36 and do it all over again. And yes, we were young. We had a lot of energy and we were young, but you get pooped.
Of course. Oh, of course. And then no, well, did you get compensated for the USO tours or for the Love Boat? Did you get any other extra compensation?
USO, no. We might have for the Love Boat. It's hard to think back. That was a long time ago.
Sure.
I know that we all got our SAG cards, which aren't easy to get. And I remember them saying, the money that you made will pay for that. There was never, everything was paid for.
Right.
But no, I think it cost a lot to be a cheerleader back then.
Well, that's so true. And so what was the drive to continue to do this? Because, and again, I'll go back to the documentary. You could see the joy. You could see the joy and yes, heartbreak. But even with the post interviews in the making of the documentary, you still see the joy from all of you. It's like, yeah, we worked for nothing. But there's a reason somehow.
I think if you're a dancer, and all of us are, you don't do that for the money. Right. And if you love football, which most of us, I'd say 90% of us do, there's an energy and it's something that's a part of you and it's in your blood. And I remember when I was a little girl, my poor mother, I wore boots. I wore cowboy boots and go-go boots all the time. All the time.
I love it.
And apparently when I made the Cowboys, somebody said to my mom, well, I knew she'd find a job where she had to wear those boots.
See, that's that kismet meant to be. So that's perfect.
Yeah, they always say, were y'all born with pom-poms in your hand? Or, for us, it's a sport. Mm-hmm. You're an athlete.
Yes.
And
dancers are athletes for sure.
dancers are athletes. And, how many athletes spend their parents spend all their time and all their money so they can be an Olympian. And not everybody can be an Olympian. We were just really lucky. We got to go to the Olympics. We were the Olympians.
Yeah.
And then when you're there, I've often related it to the military. These women were in the foxhole with me. They get me. I get them. We shared something that so few people on the planet get to do. And you can't put that into words.
Right.
The bond. And that's why I'm excited about my new podcast, because I want to share that bond with the country by taking 6 decades of professional cheerleaders and letting them tell the story, because we fall into the category of they lied about us a lot. Lots of lies out there about professional cheerleaders.
Yeah. Well, that and again, that documentary paints a huge picture, including much of that. But your podcast tell us the name of that.
The Sideline Legends in their own words.
That's right. I knew the full name. Sideline Legends in their own words.
Time in our words. And those that I'm reaching out to and are scheduled so far, we're also very excited because we didn't get to have a voice.
Right.
And we're excited to have a voice. And there's men.
Yep. Well, that's just it. So this is the voice of our time now. So that's very, very exciting. And so after you decided to leave, or however that played out, if your time was finished.
Well, Roger retired. Who wants to do that if Roger's gone?
Got it.
Literally, Roger announced his retirement, I think, on one day. And 3 days later, I was like, I don't want to do it without Roger.
Got it. Well, because then that was all part of the whole family too. And how did you find the years after? So coming out of a huge high, and I was just interviewing a beautiful artist and she was mentioning, when you have the lead up to a show and a gallery opening, and all of us have birthed something, there can be this gap. There's where it gets very quiet. And maybe it's that time between whatever the next thing is. So what were your times after the cheerleading for you?
I think, and as I said in my speech at Podfest, I thought, I'm going to be an actress now. I want to be an actress. And I had been cast as Lucy's best friend on Dallas while I was still living in Dallas. And a wonderful producer said, if you move out to LA, and I was married to a musician at the time. And so we did that crazy thing. We moved to LA, that he would help me. And he did. And I never really got into the acting. It just wasn't for me. I guess I just couldn't do I'm my product.
Mm-hmm.
This is what you want. I'm more of a producer, marketing person. And so then I went into that. So I kept myself very, very busy with my career. And I worked behind the scenes. So I was still in an arena that is, known and exciting. So I really didn't feel that quiet. I never really felt that I missed it. Plus, I still had my friends,
right?
That and we're still so very close that. No, I think I really lucked out. I never really felt like there was a quiet time, or it was just like, wow. I had confidence. It had built confidence in me. Hey, you want something? Go for it. You'll get it.
Well, that's fantastic. So you didn't have that end of an era type of a moment. You just kept going, and did your
I just kept
Tami
going.
thing.
I just did my thing.
You just did
Yes.
your thing.
And I
So
was in a
now,
dance company in Los
okay.
Angeles. So, that just kind of went on with it. So I was still doing stuff like that.
Well, that's really fun. And so, and again, my sense of you is that you enjoy fun, you have fun, and that you gather people who also like to have fun,
That's
and
why
that
I
you.
love crazy LA.
Now let's fast forward to life in an RV, because
Uh-huh.
somewhere along the line, it became you and downsizing to the nth degree, and you went off grid and up to the mountains, and you were having that kind of adventure.
Yes.
And then you had a very important thing happen.
Yes. Well, what
Yeah.
happened was being an only child, and I never had any children. And I lost both of my parents. I had gone back to Nebraska from LA and to take care of my mom, and then had made the decision to stay because I had been away from home for 20 years and missed a lot, and realized what I had missed in that time, and all the panic, fly home, this and that. And so I stayed, and I was married. And when I just say, when everybody's gone, my dream in my whole life was to take care of animals. And I pictured myself up in the mountains taking care of animals. And I went on a sojourn trip in 2018. Where do I want to live? What do I want to do? I put a couple dogs in the car and drove through Colorado. I looked through Colorado, Arizona, Wyoming, back in California, and then somebody said to me, "Why don't you go? Have you heard of Best Friends Animal Sanctuary?" And I said, "No." They said it's this unbelievable place in Utah. And I thought, well, I can circle around. I was in Northern California. I can circle around down through Nevada and hit that to see. And I had planned to stay, check it out an afternoon, leave the next day. And I was kind of set on Colorado in the beginning. And I ended up staying 3 days. And I came home and I started applying online for a job to work there. And in 2019, I was offered a job there. And I said, have anything that I have to stay here for, Nebraska. And so I had 8 parrots, 3 dogs, and I headed to Kanab, Utah, and worked in a Best Friends Animal Sanctuary, totally off the grid.
Wow. So just to back up a second, both of your parents had passed, and then even your husband had passed away as well.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And so I'm sure after doing all of the whatever the home houses and sorting through all of those things, then you go on this adventure. You and all of those 8 parrots,
In
all
a
of
camper,
those
in a camper. But
and a camper.
it's a
Wow.
35.5 foot, so I call it my 2-bedroom, 1 bath.
Yes.
The
And
birds have their
and
own.
you're driving it yourself?
Oh, yes.
Oh my
Yes.
gosh, that's awesome. You hot ticket.
Oh, I love the road. I think I'm a gypsy at heart.
Okay,
And
good.
so I'm always thinking, where's the next adventure? And this truly was. And I'd never lived anywhere so beautiful in my life. And there's something magical. If any of you ever get a chance, please go to Best Friends Animal Sanctuary in Kanab, Utah, and take a tour and see the wonderful work that's being done there. I miss it terribly, but you had indicated there was a reason I left. I had been there exactly a year, and I was having some health issues, and so I was getting some tests done, and I had, well, actually, I had COVID, and after COVID, I had swollen joints and literally was having trouble walking. I mean,
Mm.
could not walk. I was in so much pain. My knees were swollen, my ankles, my hands. And this was before they knew what, there was long COVID or, what had happened. And so I was driving 75 miles to St. George for some tests. And a doctor said, well, you might have torn your meniscus. So I'm going to give you this cortisone shot. And this is on a Friday. He says, I'm going to give you this shot. Now, if you've torn your meniscus, you should be okay for about 2 weeks. And so in 2 weeks, if you're back where you are today, we're going to know you have a torn meniscus and we'll do an MRI. And I said, okay, because my job is active and physical. So he gave me that shot and I drove home. And oh my gosh, that evening I could walk. And Saturday I could walk. And Sunday I couldn't walk. So I called Monday and I said, is it possible that the torn meniscus only lasted 2 days? I thought you said 2 weeks. He says, no, let's do an MRI. So the following Friday, I drove the 75 miles again and got an MRI. And luckily, I'm also a licensed massage therapist and am in awe of the body and what a miracle machine it is. And I thought, there is lower back issues in my family, weak discs, and I'd had some things happen, as a dancer that had affected that. And I said to them, let's not just do my knee. Why don't we just do my whole pelvis to my knees? Because, I've had sciatica, and so I knew what the area was. And so then that was on the next Friday. And so then I got a call that said, okay, come in next Friday for the results. So off I go again. And all of this takes, especially driving those roads, it's a good almost 2 hours to get to this facility. And the doctor, okay, this is height of COVID. We have no vaccines. We're all still not going anywhere, not doing anything. And in walk 3 doctors and 2 nurses. And they sat down and, well, you do not have a torn meniscus. We're not real sure what's going on with your knee. It could be, from what we're learning, is an after effect of COVID, but we're more concerned about the mass on your pelvis. And I said, but why can't I walk?
Mm.
I did not process
what he just said. Yeah.
What he just said.
Yeah.
But why can't I walk? Well, again, he reiterated and he said, so, and he kind of patted my hand and said, so, the nurse here is going to make an appointment for you next door at the Women's Cancer Center, and we wish you luck. And they all left the room except that nurse. And I'm still sitting there thinking, what's wrong with my knee? And she said, when would be a good time for me to come in for this ultrasound and this and this, that? And I'm thinking, the Women's Cancer Center. And still, it took a couple days to understand. I was diagnosed with endometriosis in my 30s. So I'd had a couple of DNCs and, I had cysts and I had this and I had that. And so I thought, well, here we go again. But they'd all come back benign and there was nothing. So then I went in for that ultrasound on a Friday. And where I lived, I had spotty internet. And I had no cell service. Now, my phone would notify me if I got a voicemail, but the phone didn't ring and I couldn't talk, but I'd get a ping. So this is Monday morning at 8 a.m. after that Friday ultrasound. And it's my doctor. And he says, would you please call me? And so I hop in my truck and I drive the 1.5 miles up the mountain to get cell service, and I called the office and they said, oh yes, Tami, he wants you to have his personal cell phone number. And my first thought was, he's asking me out on a Monday morning at 8 a.m.
You thought he was asking for a
I'm
date?
still not
Oh my God.
processing. Why is a doctor calling me on
Oh
Monday
my.
morning? So I called him, and I'm sitting in my truck by myself, looking out at my beautiful mountain backyard. And he says, "You have ovarian cancer, and it's very fast growing, and it's very aggressive, and you can't do it here. You're going to have surgery and chemotherapy, and you're going to need help, and you're going to need family to help you. Is there somewhere you can go?" And that's all I remember of that conversation. My brain shut completely down. I had a cousin that's living in New Orleans, and still sitting in that spot, I called her, and she had me on speakerphone, and she lived with another friend of hers. And I said, "I have ovarian cancer." And all she said was, "Oh, Tami." And then this other voice of this woman I had never met suddenly was on the phone, and she said, "Get your ass here. We will take care of you. I am a cancer survivor. You're going to be okay. Now, I want you to go home. I want you to crawl in bed, and I want you to cry and cry and cry today, and only today. And then I want you to start packing and get ready to come here." That woman's name is Laura. She is now my roommate here. I live with her. And she is my angel on earth. She has literally saved my life. Because fast forwarding, yes, I made it here. I had the surgery. I got the chemo. During my first round of chemo, my first 6 months here, my cousin passed away.
Oh, Tami. Oh,
And
okay.
I was alone.
Right.
I had one other living relative who was my 96-year-old aunt back in Nebraska. And I didn't know what I was going to do. Where was I going to live? I was living with this friend of my cousin's. She had opened her home to me and given me a place and my animals. And now I had 10 birds and a cat. I had fostered 10 cats at Best Friends and only kept one. I think that I should be applauded for that.
That's admirable. Yes.
Yes. And I worked at the parrot garden, and I only adopted 2. So again, I think that's wonderful, because I could have brought all 100 of them. But that's how I arrived here. And a total stranger brought me into her home. And here I am 3 years later. And we have been through a great deal. My 96-year-old aunt passed 5 months after my cousin did, and leaving me without family.
Mm.
And I am beyond blessed and grateful. I know I say this and people think I'm absolutely crazy, but cancer's the best thing that's ever happened to me.
So tell us more about that. And while we're honoring our earth angels and families that we may not be blood relatives, but then there's family, and you have your cheerleading family.
Yes,
now this woman appears in your life. Wow.
Yes. And 1 month after my cousin passed, Hurricane Ida hit us here.
Oh my gosh, that's right. This is in Louisiana.
Louisiana,
just north of New Orleans.
New Orleans, yes. We were hit very hard here.
Yep.
And we had no electricity for 3 weeks. So Laura and I still had not really gotten to know each other much because my first 6 months was me, medical, COVID. I tell everybody she put me in the bubble wrap protection program because I was only allowed to leave the compound to go to the hospital and get a treatment and come home and not go anywhere. And people kept saying, "How do you like Louisiana?" I'm like, I don't. The hospital's very nice. Everybody there's very nice. Um, and so, and my cousin being like a sister to me, you know, that was our relationship. And Laura's self-employed and a very hard worker, so she's working, and you know, that life went on with that. And then my cousin's gone, and we have no electricity, and we're trying to. And luckily, the house, the animals, we were all okay. We decided not to evacuate, but you know, we had damage. She lost 25 trees, and we had tree people and electric people and phone and I'm bald as a cue ball out running around with all these work people going, "Do you need water? Do you need this? We want you over here. Come help us. Come help us." And so every evening she would line the kitchen table with these little candelabras, and we would drink rum, and we got to know each other. And that's how we
Wow.
became family, is, you know, thank you, Hurricane Ida. We built our bond, and it has just grown stronger and stronger. And she's like talk about cheerleader. She's my biggest cheerleader through all of this because after my first round of chemo, I was told that it didn't work and that I had to continue treatment, and that I had contracted hepatitis B taking care of my cousin in the last couple days of her life, and that my chemo had to stop, and we had to worry about me having hepatitis B. So a lot went on in that first year here, first 2 years, and I am now rounding the corner of year 3 of my chemo infusions. I've had 7 different chemos, and let's see, including last Friday, I've had 58 infusions.
Wow.
So,
and you're still here, and you're
I'm
still rocking.
here.
You're here, and you're rocking.
And I'm pretty sure my doctor in Utah doesn't think so, because according to, I don't Google, but Laura Googles, I had a 32% chance of survival.
Well, here you are.
And I have lost 2 cheerleading sisters to ovarian cancer. So I know how very serious it is. So I'm blessed.
Yes, you are. And I lost a neighborhood, one of the neighborhood friends, also to ovarian cancer. And she lived so much during that journey. And so there's always light and love within all of it.
Yes.
And you were saying that you were feeling, I don't want to misuse your words, whether you feel blessed about cancer, or what did you say?
Yeah.
That it was a lucky thing somehow.
Oh, yes. I'm also a member of a cancer survivors dancing group called the Bionic Babes. We perform at charity events. October is crazy cancer charity events. We perform also at Mardi Gras parades. And that's another sisterhood and again, a great group of women who we have all different kinds of cancers in our group. And it's so nice to be with other people who you don't have to explain.
Right. It's a wordless thing. And
yeah, and we never
even
talk about cancer. We just we prepare our performances and do a lot of Jello shots. I love New Orleans. If I had to leave LA, I'm glad I ended up in New Orleans.
In New Orleans. Oh gosh, you get some beads and shake your beads.
Oh my gosh, what a great place to be.
Oh my God. Well, and then the music and it's joyous there. And
We
they
celebrate,
go
like
through
I
some
said,
hard times, but it's fun and it's joyous.
we throw a parade for everything.
Good.
Everything. My laundry came back. That parade will be Saturday at noon.
Oh, that's great. So tell me, so Bionic Babes, that's fantastic. You dance and you move and you have fun and you perform for other folks.
Yeah.
And how to circle over to your podcasting, that
Well,
this is what you're doing, and you launched your Cancer the Emotional Mountain, and now you're
yes.
doing the Legends. So tell us how you were able to corral all of your gifting, and now you're doing it via podcasting.
Well, when I found, my experience with cancer, my mom had pancreatic cancer, my dad had a brain tumor, my cousin's mom had a brain tumor, and my cousin had cervical cancer. All I knew was you got it, you got treated, you lived or you died. I thought it was always a one and done. So when they told me it didn't work and I had to continue, I thought, wait, what? I'd say that was probably the lowest part. Finding out I had cancer and going through all that was not the lowest part of my life. Finding out it wasn't cured and that I had to keep going through me. So I was given, appointed, forced to a psychiatrist at a cancer center. And it was a very awful, disheartening, hopeless experience.
Oh, you
I
had a
gained
bad one? Because
had a
there
bad
are
one.
brilliant ones and then there are not brilliant
Really,
ones at all.
really bad ones, really
Oh,
bad
that's
ones.
too bad.
And that's when I found the Bionic Babes because there was a flyer at the cancer center. Um, and I had also started working at the cancer center because I am a barista. And where I worked, the cancer center opened and they said, "Hey, would you like to go over there?" And here I am 2 years later, still there. And I love it there. And it's my little part-time job where I get to be with my people. And I can see in their eyes where they are, something's happening. And if they let me, I just say, "Do you want to share?" And so I love being there and I love the families and the patients that I have met. And I've met some very special ones that are survivors. And then I've lost some special ones. So the reality of cancer has always been there. And what I realized was there's a gap in the understanding if you're not a patient. I'd been the caregiver, and what I realized when I had cancer is that I didn't do enough. And that broke my heart for my parents, that I didn't know what they needed emotionally, and that I didn't know what I needed emotionally until it was me walking or climbing the mountain. And you climb and you slide back down and you climb, and there's valleys and there's peaks and only another cancer patient can understand that. And that's how Cancer the Emotional Mountain was born, because I wanted to. How else can you send your message other than a podcast? I don't have to bang on doors and say, "Put me on the news. I want to talk about what it's like to have cancer." I don't have to call a radio station and say, "Let me talk to your people who have cancer." We have the freedom to build a world and share. And that's the other reason I love podcasting, because I was able to do this. I was able to find the right people who taught me the right things, who introduced this world to me. And, because I thought podcasting was I'm just going to listen to the story of Paul McCartney or, um, and through my podcast, I've met more and more people. And like you said, you go to these things and you meet people, and we're just a tight knit. And I love talking to people who are thrivers.
Mhm.
The word survivor is, I think, a little overrated with thrivers. You never not have cancer. You have NED, no evidence of disease, but you never lose that little voice in the back of your head that if your thumbnail hurts, I have thumbnail cancer. If you have a headache, I have a brain tumor. It's always there. You're a completely different person. And those are the people that I want to talk to. And those are the people that I want to hear from.
Right. And how long has your show been? And because all of that is beautiful. And the one thing that I instantaneously learn about a podcast is that when somebody says, well, when is your show? Or did I miss your show? No, it's on forever.
It's on forever, yes.
Radio and TV are great, but really those are fleeting moments. And these episodes are out for anybody to listen to the library of information.
Oh, yes. If you just, Spotify, iHeart, Apple, iHeartRadio. My favorite thing, and I don't want to say her name out loud because she's a little black box over there. And if I talk to her, she will respond. Alexa.
Oh, right. That's true.
I can lay in bed at night and ask her to play my podcast for me.
Isn't that so
cool? It's so cool.
It's pretty
like,
cool.
Oh, there I am.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's podcasting is just and so my podcast is 1 year old, and I am on the things I mentioned: Spotify, Apple, iHeart,
and all the ones that you can talk into. Yes,
all the ones. Yeah.
Hey, or so and so.
Yeah. Or just ask what's her name.
Right.
And so, and I look at life differently. I like you said, your friend, you live life differently after the diagnosis.
Right.
Now, I live life very emotionally. Oh, I always have. But now I live it with what happens is when I go to these cheerleader reunions once a year and we perform at halftime, the feelings I have, because we're there on we do Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And the time with them and the things we do together is always so joyful and so wonderful. And then we end it with performing on the field at halftime. And when that's over and we're leaving the field and the entire stadium is on their feet, clapping and cheering for us, I ugly cry. I can't breathe. Tears streaming down my face. I'm thinking of my mom and dad up in the stands. I'm thinking of all my sisters who I love dearly, who are maybe gone. And this time, when I left the field, I thought, we need a voice. And I just kept thinking, and you know this, when you're forming a podcast, it's a little voice. You know what I think you should do? You know what I think you should do? And podcasts are like tattoos. Once you get one. And
there could be another.
Yes, Sideline Legends was born because I had the opportunity to be a member of two alumni, one being the Cowboys and the others being the national pro cheerleaders. And so I reached out to my alumni director and the national alumni director, and I said, what do you think? Would you support me? Do you think there's an audience? Do you think people still want to hear our stories? Resounding yes. Yes. And it's so important because our stories are very personal. It's not an expose. Sorry, folks, don't turn in for the dirt. I'm not the National Enquirer.
Right.
I'm going to give you
the real deal, the good stuff.
The real deal, what brings us together, what keeps us together, what makes us a legend. And we love that word.
It's a beautiful word, very fitting.
We have
Very
a
fitting.
legacy. We have a
Yes.
legacy.
Yes. Absolute. A legacy of wisdom and probably, hurting bodies, because who
Oh,
knew, that dancing and every athletic
oh,
person knows the
uh,
years
yes.
later, it
Athletic
comes.
tape,
Yeah.
biofreeze. Okay, back
Yeah.
in my day, Stinky Ben Gay.
Yes. Wow, Tami, what a journey you've taken us on for this particular show. And I love that you have the two shows that people can find out more, and whatever touches their heart. Is there anything else that you would like to share in this moment?
No, I just want to thank you, Heather, because when we met, it was during crazy time, but
It was whirlwind,
it
yes.
was whirlwind, and you were just so very kind and just said, "Hey, here's my card," and we traded information, and then I've listened to your podcast, and your podcast is, I mean, lasting conversations. They truly are. We all have a story, and I love that you're one of those people that's getting it out there. And I just want to thank everybody out there who loves football. Not that I don't love other sports, because I truly do, but just everybody stay positive. And we're at a time in our world and in our country where we all need a hug and we need to lift each other up. And I hope that you find that from both Heather and I today.
Thank you. That's so true. And big virtual hug
I
across
know.
the Zooms.
We do a lot of that. The Zoom hug. I love the Zoom hug.
I love it. I love it.
And then
That's so beautiful.
we gotta love this way.
That's right. Yep, exactly. So, Tami, where can people find you? Do you have a website or Instagram, all those fun things?
Yes, my Instagram is just Tami Barber. My cancer Facebook page is Cancer, the Emotional Mountain. I am now in the process of my Facebook page, Sideline Legends. And I'm also deep into the website growing. So that's not out yet. Don't go look for it, because it'll say, nope, don't find it.
Right.
We're all self-employed entrepreneurs. We do it all. And it's hard to learn this stuff at my
Yeah, I
age.
know. It's a good
I need
stretch. It's a good stretch.
third
Exactly.
grader here to help me.
Maybe even high school. It's so true.
Right.
And we're going to have all your information in our show notes so people can read it. And of course, we will be on YouTube. And so we'll get to see your shiny face as well.
Thanks.
And I so appreciate this time together, Tami. Tami with an I.
Tami with an I.
Tami with an I.
Yes.
Thank you so
Heather.
much.
So fun. Thank you for allowing me this time.
All right. And we'll see you again soon. And thanks for listening, everybody. Please be sure to like, review, and share this podcast. And if you'd like to be involved, please send emails to podcast@lastingconversations. You can follow us also on Instagram, Facebook, and now YouTube. This is Lasting Conversations. We get to the heart of everything.